Hey, this is Helen Onik. This video is about Introduction to Michel Foucault from the Foucault Reader by Paul Rainbow. When thinking about human nature, do you think that all humans have a desire to engage in creative work? What about a need to engage in open discourse and free inquiry? Universalists like Noam Chomsky argue yes, there are universal human needs and desires, and the possibility of satisfying these desires hinge on the social and political landscape of the current norms in countries. Some of us will work very diligently our whole lives towards creating just societies which enhance and satisfy these universal human needs and desires. Universalists use the conception of human nature as a standard to judge contemporary society against if institutions of power and their actions are just or unjust. Michel Foucault isn't a universalist. His thinking and writing wants to avoid claiming that there are 100% for certain universal facts. He is not an individual who dreams and conceives of future utopias of just societies. No, he thinks that there's no universal understanding of conceptions such as justice or human nature. No universal understanding that is beyond history and society. One of Foucault's students, the famous philosopher Jacques Derrida, wrote an essay arguing that the conception of justice is groundless. It is an ideal that its pure form cannot be fully, completely actualized into reality. It will always be cut short. Foucault uses his time to tactfully historicize these supposedly universal categories, i.e. reason and human nature, working up to the point before claiming universality to grasp at the multiplicity and plurality of reason and human nature that has taken on and played out in civilization's history. Foucault is concerned with the roles of human nature and reason. He doesn't think that we should imagine utopias and search for first principles, because this obscures our understanding about the concrete functioning of power in Western societies. He thinks that the will to knowledge has left Western thought blinded, stranded almost totally in the dark. So Foucault writes, and I quote, "It seems to me that the real political task in a society such as ours is to criticize the working of institutions which appear to be both neutral and independent, such as the law, prisons, governments, the World Bank, etc., and criticize them in such a manner that the political violence which has always exercised itself obscurely through them will be unmasked so that one can fight them." That came from Foucault from Human Nature, page 171. The next question is, how should a person be concerned with political violence? And is there a standard to which to measure what violence or what power is good or when it is bad and unjust? Universalists like Noam Chomsky argue justice is a guiding principle to easily judge actions and determine if a power exerted is a good or a bad form of power. Meaning, if our justice department or legal systems had no fixed rational standard for what is just and unjust, it would be hard to act and have order because there's no simple understanding of what is just or unjust. In a radical vein, though, Foucault positions himself and brings up a mind-bending answer. In a Nietzschean vein, he says, and I quote, "It seems to me that the idea of justice, the conception of justice, in itself is an idea which has been invented and put to work in different societies as an instrument of a certain political and economic power, or as a weapon against that power." For an easy example, picture an organized religion which claims it is good and just, but this good power has been used to justify violent wars, holy crusades, has given justification to suicide bombers and their actions, and these types of power convince many groups of people to socially shun and repress sexualities and certain actions, and thus put down certain genders. Foucault just wants us to understand that all forces have some power, and we are all continuously engaged in different political struggles, whether we are aware of it or not. But political relations between us is always radically changing as the political and social landscape is always shifting. That's why you have to ask yourself, how am I going to add to this constantly shifting present that I'm involved in? You have incredible agency bursting through you, my friend. Don't turn blind and think that you don't. To continue on though, here's a quote by Foucault. The goal of my work during the last 20 years has not been to analyze the phenomenon of power or to elaborate the foundations of it. My objective instead has been to create a history of different modes by which, in our culture, human beings are made into subjects. Or in other words, Foucault focuses on subject formation, or how external institutions or ideologies, systems, and organizations shape and create particular human subjects. Whether we like it or not, external society is always shaping us, working on us in particular ways to live particular lives and think in particular ways. For an example, Foucault writes about the employment of dividing practices in some of his work, where institutions of power isolate certain members of society from others, such as during the plague. They would confine the people who had the plague in their homes and pass them food through their window through a bucket and pulley system. Families would have to report daily conditions of the family's lives, and they would always have to report to the window. If you fast forward a couple centuries and shift your awareness to mental institutions and prisons in the United States believes that it should isolate criminals and dangerous people from the general public and also isolate mentally ill people from the free public. But I want you to think about the evolution that these mental and prison institutions has journeyed through, such as getting from one time medicalizing and locking up gay people to still isolating criminals in solitary confinement for months and years in means of correcting them or making them pure. Foucault wants us to focus on the prison system or the psychiatric system, which seems to be a neutral power, but its power is greatly affecting people's lives and greatly shaping people's subject formation. Foucault wants us to focus on subjects, how they are formed and divided from others, but also notice how mechanisms of power such as therapy and solitary confinement or organized religions and moral systems divide subjects from him or herself. There is a division within the subject, within the human, where popular opinions of our time or times that have been laid to rest, popular opinions once made women and blacks believe that they were less than. The norms of the time would make subjects objectify themselves to certain permanent roles reinforced by beliefs, and this division within the self would create a personal identity burdened and diseased because of what external social conditions were telling them to believe in. No one is superior or less than another human being. Movie stars are not superior or better than anyone else or another life. But power relationships between everyone, even our loved ones, is a persistent dance for this illusion of power and betterment. It is an illusion to think that they are better, or more importantly, it is an illusion to think that you are less than or not good enough. Start empowering yourself by investing in your mind through reading and to understand how illusions and grand designs are constructed, to understand how society actually functions. This is Helen Onik. Subscribe to this channel if you want more content like this. I look forward to speaking to you very shortly. Have a great day, my friends.